Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress with number 13 in the series We're Standing on the Shoulders of Giants, from Ruy Lopez to Magnus Carlsen, which is a series about the strongest players of their era, so not just the 16 official world champions, but all the strongest players of their era dating back to the 1500s. You can find the 12 earlier installments of this series at the end of this video and also up here. It started in 1560 when Ruy Lopez de Segura was the strongest player of his era, and now we understand where the Ruy Lopez opening got its name from, and also that it's sometimes called the Spanish opening because Ruy Lopez de Segura was from Spain. Spain and Italy was where all the chess happened in those days, and Ruy Lopez was followed up by Leonardo da Cutri, then Paulo Boy, Alessandro Salvio, Traquino Greco, and then the power of chess moved to France with Légal de Cameur, François-André Danican Philidor, Alexandre Deschapelles, and Louis-Charles Mahé de la Bourdonnais. Then Howard Staunton from England was the strongest player of his era between 1843 and 1851, followed up by Adolf Anderssen, who was the strongest player in two time spans. In between there was the American Paul Morphy, the pride and sorrow of chess. His career only lasted a few years, unfortunately. Then we had the official world champions, and the first one was Wilhelm Steinitz, followed up by Emmanuel Lasker, and then the great Cuban José Raúl Capablanca. Alexander Alekhine followed in his footsteps. He's there in red because this video is about Alekhine. Alekhine was followed up by Max Euwe, Mikhail Botvinnik, Vasily Smyslov, and Misha Tal. Then Tigran Petrosyan, Boris Spassky, the great Bobby Fischer, Anatoly Karpov, Garry Kasparov, Vladimir Kramnik, Vishwanathan Anand, and the current world champion is Magnus Carlsen. But as said, this video is about the fourth official world champion, Alexander Alekhine, and the pronunciation of his last name is not easy. I'm using the pronunciation that I was once taught by a Russian grandmaster. Alekhine was born on October 31st, 1892 in Moscow. His father was a wealthy landowner, a member of the Duma, a Russian government body. Alexander learned chess from his brother and mother around 1903, so around the age of 10-11. At age 16 he entered the Imperial High School for Law in Moscow and was exposed to chess. In 1908 he played a match with Benjamin Blumenfeld, a Russian master, and won with 7 wins and 3 losses. In February 1909 Alekhine traveled to St. Petersburg, Leningrad, and won a tournament that gained him the Russian master title. In 1914, at the age of 22, he won his first major tournament when he tied for first place with Aaron Nimzowitsch in St. Petersburg. And in July-August of 1914, Alekhine was leading an international chess tournament in Mannheim, Germany, when World War I broke out. Later in this video we're going to look at a game from that event. He was taken as a prisoner of war. He feigned madness and the Germans released him as unfit for military service in September 1914. Alekhine made his way back to Russia, where he served in the Red Cross on the Austrian front. In 1915 he was wounded and captured by the Austrians. He had suffered a contusion of the spine and was hospitalized. There he developed his blindfold chess skills, and after the war the Russians decorated him for bravery. This man had quite a life. At the end of the war he finished his legal training and worked at the Moscow Criminal Investigation Department. In 1919 he traveled to Odessa and was briefly imprisoned in their death cell, suspected of being a spy. In 1920 Alekhine returned to Moscow and married a Russian baroness, several years older than him. He had already fathered an illegitimate daughter in 1913. Alekhine started working in a film studio, intending to be an actor. Why not? In October 1920, Alekhine won the first USSR-Soviet Union chess championship in Moscow, and 1 year later he joined the Communist Party and became a translator for the Communist International and the secretary of the Communist Education Department. He then left his wife and the Soviet Union and settled in Paris, where he married a Swiss woman, as you do. In 1925, Alekhine became a naturalized French citizen, entered the Sorbonne Law School and wrote his thesis on the Chinese prison system. He did not get his PhD or law degree, only completing 2 of the 4 stages required for the degree. In 26-27, he beat Max Euwe in a match with 3 wins, 5 draws and 2 losses. He then challenged Capablanca for the World Championship. Alekhine had just married for the 3rd time to another person much older than him, Nadezhda Vasilyev. She was the widow of a high-ranking Russian officer. In July 27, he won in Kecskemét in Hungary. He was now ready to meet Capablanca for the World Championship after putting up $10,000 in gold, which was for the prize money. Capablanca accepted the challenge and they began their World Championship match in Buenos Aires in Argentina on September 16, 1927. By November 29th, Alekhine beat Capablanca with 6 wins, 25 draws and 3 losses. The only time out was when Alekhine had 6 teeth extracted during the match. Alekhine became the 4th official world champion. Imagine having to play chess at that level after you have got 6 teeth extracted. All the games in Buenos Aires took place behind closed doors. There were no spectators or photographs. No, it was not the coronavirus that caused this. Alekhine avoided Capablanca's challenge of a rematch and took on Bogolyubov in September 29. Alekhine won with 11 wins, 9 draws and 5 losses. He avoided Capablanca by insisting that the winner get $10,000 in gold, just as he got in Buenos Aires. But after the stock market crash, there were no backers to be found. At the 1930 Chess Olympiad, Alekhine scored his first 100% score when he won all 9 games as board 1 for France, a Bobby Fischer result. In 1934, Alekhine married for the 4th time to a lady 16 years older than him, Grace Wishart. She was the widow of an Englishman. He had met her at a minor chess tournament which she had won. Her prize was one of Alekhine's books. She asked him to sign the book and their relationship developed from that moment. In 1934, Alekhine defeated Bogolyubov for the World Championship in Baden-Baden with a score of 8 wins, 15 draws and 3 losses. He then accepted a challenge from the Dutchman Max Euwe. On October 3, 1935, the World Championship match between Alekhine and Euwe began. Prize money was $10,000 for the winner. On December 15, 1935, Euwe had won with 9 wins, 13 draws and 8 losses. This was the first World Championship match to officially have seconds supporting both players. Alekhine asked for a rematch and got it in 1937, where he defeated Euwe in Holland with 10 wins, 11 draws and 4 losses. Alekhine was representing France on board 1 at the Olympiad in Buenos Aires when World War II broke out. As team captain of the French team, he refused to allow his team to play Germany. He returned to France to enlist in the army and became an interpreter. When France was taken over by Germany, he tried to go to America by traveling to Lisbon and applying for an American visa. To protect his wife and their French assets, he agreed to cooperate with the Nazis. He wrote 6 articles critical of Jewish chess players and participated in Nazi chess tournaments. In 1946, Alekhine was about to accept a match title challenge with Botvinnik. On the evening of March 23, 1946, Alekhine died in his hotel room in Estoril in Portugal. Some say he died of a heart attack, others say he choked on an unchewed piece of meat. The body was not buried for 3 weeks as no one claimed the body. Very, very sad. Finally, the Portuguese Chess Federation took charge of the funeral, and less than a dozen people showed up for his burial. In 1947, the FIDE Congress voted for Euwe to be the world champion since Alekhine died. However, the Soviet delegation was late for this vote. The next day, after protest from the Soviet delegation, the title was rescinded in favor of a match tournament, which was held in 1948 and which Mikhail Botvinnik won. In 1956, 10 years after his death, the USSR and French Chess Federation agreed to transfer Alekhine's remains to the cemetery in Montparnasse in Paris. FIDE provided the tombstone. Alekhine played over 1,000 tournament games, scoring 73% in his games, and his historical ELO rating has been calculated to be 2690. And in 2016, when I was in Paris, I visited Alekhine's grave, which was a special moment in my chess life. What an incredibly eventful life Alekhine had, and what a sad ending it was. Let's play some chess. Let's look at a game from that tournament in Mannheim 1914, which was cut short because of the outbreak of World War I. In round 11, Alekhine had the white pieces against the Swiss master Hans Farny. Garry Kasparov analyzes this game in his wonderful book My Great Predecessors, and he says this is a typical win by the young Alekhine, showing the way in which his style was taking shape. Alekhine opened with the e-pawn, and Farny played the French defense. d4, d5, knight c3, knight f6, bishop g5, bishop e7, e5, kicking the knight, knight back to d7, and now bishop takes e7 is the classical move, is a quieter alternative, writes Kasparov, but Alekhine plays h2, h4. Alekhine himself writes that this energetic move was introduced in a master tournament in this present game. It is a pawn sacrifice. Black does not have to accept the sacrifice, he can play castling on move 6. That is possible, keeping the h-file closed, but in the game, Farny took on g5, accepted the sacrifice. H takes and queen takes, and this is the tabia position of the Alekhine Chapter attack. Queen d3 is the modern move here, played by Kasparov against Korchnoi in a rapid tournament in 2001. But knight h3 was played in 1914 by Alekhine, hitting the queen. After queen h6, black's queen would be in a precarious position, writes Kasparov, so Farny played the queen back to e7. Knight f4, and now Kasparov gives a6 or knight c6 as good alternatives to the move played in the game by Farny, which was knight f8. Kasparov gives this move a question mark and calls it too unwieldy. Queen g4, and do you see the double threat that white has? If you want to look for yourself, you can put the video on pause. White is threatening to take on g7, but is also threatening to take on d5, because if you take that knight, then white will take your unprotected bishop on c8 with check. To deal with these threats, Farny played f5. That pawn was taken en passant, g takes, and now Alekhine castles queenside. With the king off the e-file, white has renewed the threat of knight c takes d5. And Kasparov writes that there is now no doubt that white has a dangerous attack for the pawn. c6 was played by Farny, rook e1, and king d8. Alekhine writes here there is no other way to develop the queenside. After bishop d7, instead, the knight sacrifice we have seen would once more be decisive, says Alekhine. Knight c takes d5, c takes d5, and knight takes d5, and white's attack is very strong. You cannot take the knight because your queen will be hanging. So king d8 was played instead of bishop d7, and Alekhine plays rook h6. e5, attacking the queen with the bishop and attacking the knight with the pawn. But that knight is not really attacked because the e-pawn is pinned. Alekhine saves his queen, queen h4, knight bd7, and bishop d3. An ideal way of conducting the attack, writes Kasparov, bringing more pieces into the attack. e4 from Farny, and queen g3, again threatening knight c takes d5. Let's have a look at that. Let's play a very bad move for black. Let's play a6 just to show the threat that white has after queen g3. Knight c takes d5 is then very strong. C takes, knight takes, attacking the queen. Queen e6, for example, but then there is queen c7 check, king e8, and rook takes e4, and white is winning here. Black loses his queen. So that threat is in a position after queen g3. Knight c takes d5 is a threat. You cannot take the bishop either, because you lose your queen, so what to do? Kasparov gives queen d6 as the best move here, and then gives this variation. Bishop takes e4, and rook g8, and says this position is by no means as clear as it is in the game. You cannot take the rook, because there is queen takes f4 check, and that's a double attack. King b1, and you take on h6, and black is better. After queen g3, Varney did not find Kasparov's move queen d6. He played queen f7, and that move gets a question mark from Kasparov. Because now Alekhine brings a very nice piece sacrifice. Bishop takes e4. And rook g8 is more tenacious, says Kasparov, but in the game Varney took the bishop. Knight takes, and black is in trouble with his king in the middle of the board. Queen takes a2 is possible here, but then there is knight takes f6, knight takes f6, and queen g7 with a winning position for white, writes Alekhine. Kasparov gives an example variation proving Alekhine's assessment was correct. I will not give that variation here. So after knight takes e4, queen takes a2 does not really work. The move from the game is rook g8, and Kasparov says now this is too late. Earlier that was a good move, now it is not. Because of the move from Alekhine, on the 20th move he played queen g3 to a3, and Kasparov says accuracy to the end. Alekhine is changing the point of attack of the queen, and in the meantime defending the pawn on a2 against any counterplay for black. In this position the engine wants to play queen e7, which is the best move in the position. White then also gets a large advantage by swapping the queens. King takes, knight f6 check. The check is from the rook to the king. King f7, knight takes g8, king takes g8, and rook e7. And this is much better for white. Material-wise, he has a rook and two pawns for bishop and knight, but just look how beautifully white's pieces are placed and how well they coordinate, and how bad black's coordination is. Another important factor is that black's king is still very exposed to white's pieces, so white has a winning position here. So that after queen a3 and then queen e7 as pointed out by the engine. But in the game Varney played his queen to g7, and that move allows the knight coming from e4 to d6, exclamation mark. The strongest move in the position, and now white is winning. You cannot take the rook, because there is knight f7 check with a family fork. Varney tried knight b6, but then Alekhine again found the strongest move, knight e8. What a move, planting the knight on the 8th rank next to the opponent's king. Let's attacking the queen. Queen went to f7, and this actually allows mate in 3, but there was already no way out for black. His king is just too exposed to white's pieces. If you want to put the video on pause and see if you can find the mate in 3, it's not very difficult. You start with queen d6 check. In Kasparov's book the game ends here, but my database gives one more move before black resigns. Queen d7 may have been played, and the last move of the game, queen takes f6 check, and here Varney resigned. There's only one legal move, you have to interpose the queen, which will be taken, and then this is checkmate. Kasparov writes this is a clear and clean attack. And then a day later, on August 1st, 1914, the First World War began. The tournament was cut short, and the organizers hastily distributed the prize money in accordance with the tournament standings. May you live in interesting times, is the saying. Well, our fourth world champion Alexander Alekhine definitely did live in interesting times and lived a very interesting life. I hope you enjoyed this video and that you like this series. If you do, please give the video a thumbs up, please subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel, and please leave a comment. I will read them all and I will reply to them all. If you like the video, if you like the series, then please share it on social media by clicking the share button on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram, on Twitter and on Facebook. This is Rick for Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.